last February, I was asked to tell a story for an event in Juneau, where I now live. And I thought, wow, I should pull that story back out. I haven't told it since then. And so I did a bunch of new work on it, so I thought I would try it again tonight and see if those storytelling folks even recognize what I've done with it since then. Karen took her foot off the gas, and the truck slowly limped to the side of the dirt road. I opened the back door and got out and looked down, and sure enough, as we could tell, the back tire was completely flat. I immediately crawled up underneath the truck, and sure enough, there was a spare. It looked brand new, never been used. But there was a padlock holding the tire in place. So I called out to Karen in the cab. I said, Karen, where's the key to the spare tire? I heard some rustling of papers, opening and closing of console, jangling of keys. And then Karen's voice came back. I think it's in the junk drawer. In the kitchen. In Phoenix. That's Karen, her boyfriend John, my then girlfriend Christine, and I, were on the Kaibab Plateau near the north rim of Grand Canyon, approximately 340 miles from the junk drawer in the kitchen in Phoenix. Realizing we were going nowhere, we set up our camp, we had some supper, enjoyed the evening, and figured we'll deal with this later. If we have to, we will walk to the trailhead in the morning. We're there to go backpacking anyway. What's another mile? We can deal with the truck when we get back. So that's what we did. We crawled into our sleeping bags and our tents, went to sleep, and it was around midnight when I woke up to a sound of a car coming down the road. I jumped out of my sleeping bag. I was racing out of the tent, still trying to pull my jeans up as I stumbled out into the road, barefooted, bare-chested, my nipple-length beard and waist-length hair electric from the static of the nylon sleeping bag. I stumbled out into the road in front of the oncoming headlights, which promptly stopped about 100 feet away. I can only imagine what kind of beast they thought had just come out of the woods after them. But I waved my arms frantically, and they slowly began backing up. I ran towards them, waving my arms more, and they stopped again, and I yelled, please, please come, we need help. Slowly, they eased the car forward, stopping right beside me and rolling down the passenger side window about 2 inches. Through that 2-inch gap, I told them the whole story of how we were stuck with the flat tire and the padlock and so forth. And as soon as I told the story, all 4 doors of that little Toyota flung open, and 4 men, all in their late 20s, early 30s, sprung from the seats, and the driver proclaimed, "Have no fear! The Boy Scouts are here." One of them opened the trunk of the Toyota and pulled out a toolbox the size of a Volkswagen. They set it down in the road behind the truck, opened up the drawers, each pulled out a couple of tools of choice, dove underneath the truck, and I heard clanging and prying and sawing and more clanging, and then a thud of a padlock falling to the dirt road. I looked to each side at my companions who had now come out of their tents to see the spectacle. The Boy Scouts came back out with the tire, and I stood up and I said, "Thank you so much. I can take care of it from here." "Sit down, wild man." This is a job for the Boy Scouts. Well, with the efficiency of a NASCAR pit crew, they removed the flat tire, they put on the new tire, and then they even secured the flat tire underneath the truck. And we went back to bed after heartily thanking the Scouts. The next morning we got up, had breakfast, we drove. It was only a mile to the trailhead, and we were on the trail in no time, making our way to the bottom of Grand Canyon. Very quickly, things took a bit of a turn when I realized that my girlfriend Christine had ill-fit boots that were a solid size too small. Needless to say, the going was slow and it was rough. And by the time we made it the 13 miles down into the canyon, along the Pfitzer River, near the Colorado River at the bottom to camp. We were exhausted, it was dark, and we looked around. There was nowhere to pitch a tent. The camping zone that was prescribed for us down there was fairly small, and it was one tent and then another and then another and then another and another. Nowhere to pigeonhole our camp in. So we stood there, our packs on the ground, discussing what we should do. Maybe we would hike back up to the Thunder River waterfall. It's beautiful there. We can't legally camp there, but there's a nice flat spot. When we heard a voice coming from a campfire nearby. "That you, wild man?" Next thing you know, the Boy Scouts were unstaking their tents, and they were sliding them around right next to each other to make room in their little circle around the fire for 2 more little pup tents. And we stayed up late in the night with the Boy Scouts around the fire, swapping stories, enjoying the evening. And the next 2 or 3 days in the bottom of the canyon were absolute magic. We had a full moon, and we stayed up all night watching the shadows dance around the canyon walls. During the day, we hiked down to the Colorado River where we swam and we basked in the sun. And finally, it was time then for us to head back out. Now, that evening, the Boy Scouts came to me, and they said, "Wild man, you might consider leaving with us. We're leaving right after supper." And I said, no, we want one last night in the canyon. They said, "Well, you know, it's going to be really hot tomorrow, and it's going to take a lot more water to get out than it took coming in. If you hike at night, it'll be cooler, it'll be easier. Why don't you come with us? We'll be fine." We said goodbye to the Boy Scouts. They broke down their camp, took off, and we sat down and discussed our plan. We decided that while we weren't going with the Boy Scouts, we would get up extra early and try to get as much mileage behind us while it was still dark as possible. So we went to bed early. We set our alarms for way before dawn, got up, had breakfast, and off we went. We stopped at the Thunder River waterfall and refilled our bottles. But again, the going was slow headed out, and the sun was rising fast. And by 9 o'clock in the morning, it was 100 degrees out there. And as we made a pause on the trail to catch our breath, nobody said it, but I could tell we were all thinking the same thing as we looked around at one another. We were running out of water. I didn't see how we could possibly make it all the way out on the amount of water we had in our bottles. We were just needing to drink too much. I was formulating a plan. I was the most fit of us all. I would run back to the waterfall with all of our bottles. I'd fill them up. I would come back and we would continue our way. Just as I was thinking this, I looked up ahead and I saw something flapping in the wind. A piece of paper stuck to a thorn of a Palo Verde tree. I walked up there and pulled off the torn paper and unfolded it. I read the following words: "Take what you need, leave the rest. Compliments of the Boy Scouts." I looked around and sure enough, tucked back underneath the sage bush was a gallon jug full of water. I pulled it out and we spread the water out among our bottles. I hung the empty jug on the back of my pack. And turns out that was just enough water to get us the rest of the way up the trail to the trailhead. We got back up to the parking lot and John and I were lifting the packs into the bed of the truck when I heard Karen around front say, "What's that?" I look around to see her reaching around the windshield of the truck and pulling a piece of paper out from under the windshield wiper. She unfolded and read the following words: "Wild man, never forget our motto. Be prepared. Love the Boy Scouts." We got in the truck and took off down the Forest Service road on the Kaibab Plateau. And we were glad to be back on the road. We were all exhausted, ready to go find a bite to eat. And John, who was sitting across the back seat from me, turned to me and he said, "Hey, wild man, You think we're too old to join the Boy Scouts? I thought for a moment, and I looked back across the truck at him, and I said, well, yeah, we're probably too old to join the Boy Scouts, but we're definitely not too old to learn from them. Thank you.